all. Uh, okay. So, and you can go off camera, like everything we do, you don't need to be, you just need to be able to hear me mostly. Yeah, and you don't need to be seen. You can have your own privacy. Although sometimes people are more accountable if they are seen. So, but you don't need to be accountable to me. This is for you to have your own experience. So, we're going to do some somatic practices today, and we're in the interest of coming into relationship with and experience of ourself as it's happening. So being present with ourself and ourselves as kindly and gently as we possibly can without forcing anything into ourselves, but allowing our system to become a little more fluid and a little more coherent. And coherent just means that our heart rate, our breath, our hormones, our digestion are all working together. And ideally, our whole system, our self-talk is coming into alignment with ourselves. Our any like judgy sort of harsh critic that you have of yourself, shove them over into the chair in the corner. They can sit with Grogu. They don't need to be present for this. So if you have like your own voices that are picking on you, let them go over there and sit with Baby Yoda, and they should be able to quiet quiet down a little bit. They can be present. We just don't need to listen to them. So we're going to play with a few different things, a few different breaths and breath sounds, and a few different ways of moving. And the movement can be very tiny. We'll work with micro movement, or it might feel good to move big. And you're just going to listen to your own system and take it in whatever way feels best for you. So first, as we come into this space, into ourselves, into this moment in time together, let's take a minute to notice what it feels like to be in your body right now. In the experience, the sensory experience of being in your body. I can feel my heartbeat. I can feel my breath. I'm a little bit upregulated. And what you experience may be very different than me. But just coming in to the question of what is it like to be me right now? How does this feel? What is going on? And landing with yourself, landing in sensation, landing in your physical body. If a lot of thought is happening, it can be there. Just try not to put your focus on it. So the thought can be happening, like bubbling away like a little brook, but don't give it your full attention. Just let it be the background. Thoughts happening in the background, not taking your full attention. And we're going to start with a breath. It's called the theta breath, Theta, theta. And it's just a soft hiss, like you're releasing steam from a radiator. You'll inhale, you'll let the theta breath last as long as it lasts. It can be just a short one or a long one, whatever feels right in your body. And we're not trying to like break a record in the longest exhalation. We're just trying to come into listening. So whenever you feel like you need to inhale again, inhale again. If you need to take some resting breaths, that's totally fine too. So this is really permission practice, permission to take this practice in any way that you need it, listening in deeply to your body and listening into the wisdom of your body. So we'll just do theta breath for a few minutes. If micro movement bubbles up, if anything bubbles up, big movement, or it doesn't, all of it is fine. Feeling into yourself as you're in this experience, feeling into the physical sensation, feeling into the sound, letting your exhale become more extended than your inhale. Ideally, we'll be inhaling through our nose and eyes can be open or closed. It's easier sometimes to go in with eyes closed, but if you're feeling uncertain, it might help to look around a little bit. Inviting yourself to come into this relationship to gravity, this relationship to the earth, that we feel the connection of the ground underneath us. We can feel the fluids in our bodies connecting downwards. So coming into this awareness of being in a body of water, maybe there's some little flows happening in that body of water. Maybe it's more still, but coming in with the intention of just really deeply listening into your own experience, listening into your own awareness, your own body being a body right now. So when we extend our exhale, we start to down regulate our system. It means we come down into that rest, digest, soothe, and settle. When we start to slow it down, to slow down, to calm down, we start to come into this capacity for digestion, for metabolization, for processing. So we're inviting ourselves into that place. And it's not necessarily telling us a big story about what the place is, it's just allowing the body to play out in its own way, whatever unwinding, whatever releasing, whatever sort of unraveling is happening. Not scary unraveling, but just the right amount of, oh, I can just let go of that tension a little bit. If we can just let go of like 2% of the tension that we're holding, that will be a tremendous relief. So just it doesn't have to be big or huge. We're going to play, and you can do this laying down as well. You don't have to be seated. I'm on a physio ball, and the physio ball has bounce. So there's already movement in my relationship to the physio ball. But you could be on a couch, you could be standing. You can do this in whatever way feels most resourceful for your body, most resourcing. So we're going to come into this idea of our head-tail connection, or we could think of it also as the sort of up-downness of our body. And as we come into that idea, we're going to just invite in some little micro stretches deep inside, little tiny elongations, feeling like maybe head reaching up or tail reaching down, or it could even be your arms reaching down, just a little teeny bit. And whenever you're ready, you can let that go and release that. So we're just coming in to notice these little micro stretching and micro releasing in our up downness of our body, in the length of our body, our head to tail. And there may be micro movement that starts to bubble up with that. What is micro movement? Little tiny internal adjustments in flow that help us feel comfortable. So allowing that in, like we could say that our gut body is doing movement all the time in its motility, our tongue to tail digestion. Our breath is doing kind of micro movement, macro movement. Our heartbeat is doing, depending on how you look at it, we could think it's very small movement or it's big movement. So micro could be very different for one person to another. It might be almost invisible or it might be very obvious. So inviting that in with these little teeny stretches and releases, elongations, and then kind of like almost like we're growing and then we're shrinking just ever so slightly on this little tiny level within our head-tail connection. From the crown of our head, our fontanelle, that little, it's a soft spot when we're babies, and then it fills in down all the way through our tail, maybe through our sit bones, maybe through our feet. Little micro elongations and micro releases. Inviting your system to slow down, to calm, and to come into a down regulation that feels easy or nothing to do here, nothing extra. And it might even be that your body does this without you having to try and make it happen. Like there may be these little lengthenings and shortenings that are just happening anyway. So tuning into that. So we're working kind of along this vertical dimension of up and downness. If you're laying on the floor, you might be in the horizontal, but just thinking of head, tail, elongating slightly and then coming back into itself without any real story to it. You're not going for good posture or you're not judging it. Oh, I did that really well. It's more like, no, I'm just letting myself feel into my system, letting myself feel into this relationship of head tail. What's the story of it? The story is my cranium is housing my brain, and then my nervous system is coming down through my spinal cord. All of that is being nourished and resourced by my cerebral spinal fluid. And as I do these little micro elongations and then coming back in, I'm encouraging the movement of that cerebral spinal fluid to nourish and to detoxify. So it's taking away waste, right? It's coming out, bringing oxygen, nourishment, bolstering the whole nervous system, and then it's coming back out and filtering out through the blood. So and that does that 3 or 4 times a day. And the reservoir up inside your brain for your CSF is right there. Like if you cross-hatched your brain from the middle of your ear right behind your brow, it's kind of in there between your pituitary gland and your pineal gland. There's this little reservoir of cerebral spinal fluids moving out from there, from the ventricles out through the spine, coming back in, and then going out through your blood, nourishing your body, nourishing your brain and your spine, your system. So we're thinking of just helping it along with our little teeny growing and shrinking, little teeny elongations and releases. But let's start to add something to it. So instead of just thinking in this up-down axis of our body, let's think a little bit into the side-side axis. So it might be that you're going to twist a little bit, or it might be that you'll shift a little bit, but just inviting in more three-dimensional movement. So we can have our up-downness, we can have our side-sideness, maybe there's some forward-backwardness. So it might be like, oh, there's little ripples and waves moving up and down, little undulations. And I like to call them micro waves, little waves, not like the microwave that we would cook things in, but like little teeny waves or micro undulations. So inviting those micro undulations into your body, into your spine, in the interests of offering more freedom and more flow. So that we may come across a part, it's like, oh, it's kind of hard to move that. That's okay. Go somewhere where it's easy to move. So it's when we come into our bodies, it's often very easy to feel the pain, to feel the things that are hurting, to feel what's uncomfortable. So it's okay, we can do that, but we also want to start to feel what feels good. And are there things I can do to give myself more good feeling in through movement, through awareness? So we want to think of that like internal blossoming, this internal awakening of spaciousness around our spine, inside our cranium, in our whole body mind, just giving us a little bit more room, a little bit more ease of being, a little less tension. So inviting that in, let's play again with that theta breath and just invite in this micro movement in a very three-dimensional way. There isn't a right or wrong about this. Imagine that you're just slowly releasing the floodgates of all the movement that you've inhibited for your whole life in every directive to sit still, to do it this way. We're letting go of that and we're just allowing the system to reconnect with itself, to reconnect in movement, to reconnect in breath. So working the theta breath just to inspire the movement maybe a little bit. And if your body is really like, I don't feel like moving at all, that is okay too. If your body wants to move big, see if you can just go slower. So see if you can slow it down. If we're barely wanting to move, we could also try just moving so small that we can barely feel that we're moving. Like how small can it possibly be? How slow can it be? I want to also invite in the real basin of our pelvis, like the whole bowl of our pelvis into this. So we're not like ignoring our first and second chakra or the root of our body, our reproductive organs, our digestive system, all this stuff down here. That's in the mix too. And we're not pushing it into some kind of corset. We're taking off the corset, letting go, and giving it some vitality, some flow, some movement, releasing any idea about what we're supposed to look like or how we're supposed to behave, and just letting our body have some freedom to move, to be a body, to be like an animal body. Or a better image would be to be like a sea creature body. Like, what if we were an octopus, a slow octopus, really feeling into being? They have more like sensory neurons, the octopus, than we do. So imagine that, like you're bringing online, you're creating these connections of awareness, sensory awareness. We could even say sensory motor awareness. If it feels interesting, let your hands come into the mix. So it's not just a head. We could say our lungs, our heart, and the basin of our gut body, our pelvis, our reproductive organs, but also we have these limbs. So there's this core center to edge distal relationship going on, if that's interesting. And the dexterity of our hands, like this awakening of our hands and our fingers to life force and vitality, is really valuable even for our language center. So the parts of our brain that are responsible in many ways for manual dexterity are very close to our linguistic parts. And so probably because thousands and thousands of years ago, the first language was movement, was gestural. And then we developed our voices and speaking language and words. So connecting that, like when we're playing with our hands, we're offering this free flow movement into our hands. We're playing with those language centers, or we're very close with them in our brain. And that cerebrospinal fluid is bathing the whole thing, the whole brain, the whole nervous system, or the whole spinal cord. And our peripheral nervous system is going out to these edges, coming back in with information. And we could say that the water in our body knows all of it. And the cerebral spinal fluid is kind of the most closest thing to like seawater that we have in our body. There's more stuff in there than just water, but it's very close. So think of it as like an amazing conduit for energy, current, for information. If the water in my nose knows something, the water in my toes also can know that thing. Just bringing in this idea of deep cellular fluid intelligence that's way beyond your thinking mind, and invite that into your experience. And I'm going to add music and give us a chance to play with that with some sound. And you can bring back the theta breath anytime you want. That's just going to add maybe some gentleness. If the theta breath feels uncomfortable in any way, just skip it. So I'm adding music. Did I share sound? Yes, I did. I'm going to add music and let us play a little bit, and I'll probably talk some of the time too. Let's see. Let's go with this. So this music that I'm about to add is called Ambient Fields. It's Jeff Gersh. I think this was made in Iceland. And let the music feed your movement. Let the music inspire your body. Let the music dance with the fluids of your body. And I'm going to take this all the way down to the floor. Using these tools, theta breath whenever it feels good, micro stretches and releases, micro undulations, relationship of the head to the tail, including all the systems of your gut body, of your organs, with some kindness kindness for yourself, some kindness for your own experience of being a person on the planet. And breathing that in, exploring is as micro or macro as feels good to you. The micro movement is supporting the macro movement. And of course, I love rolling around on the floor and find this to be an incredibly nourishing place. So feel free to do that, or even get up and move around. Trying to stay present with your experience, present in this moment with your physical sensation experience. As big or small as feels good. If you find yourself going into some habitual patterning, try just slowing it down. Giving your body the chance to unwind, disentangle any weird cultural programming or familial programming that told you who or how you should be or what you should look like, how you should hold your body, and letting go of it in as gentle a way as possible, as kind as possible. You are the main ingredient in your life. You will be in this body-mind for the rest of your life. Can you be kinder? And sometimes being kinder means like eating healthier food, taking time to be with your community or your family or your pets, taking the time to just be without distractions, just being with yourself. Becoming curious about the experience, the subtlety of the experience. And offering yourself a chance to move toward what feels pleasurable, what feels good. Not sybaritic pleasure so much, although maybe sometimes that, but really like embodied deliciousness. What does it feel like just to have hands? If you were conducting the whole orchestra of all the creatures in the ocean, how would you move? Coming into harmony with the systems of your body that are working to keep you healthy. Your breath, your blood flow, your hormones, your lymph. And your movement doesn't have to look anything like mine. But the more that we can attune to spaciousness in our experience and in our movement, the more spaciousness we have in our life, the more room there is, the less grippy, constipated, and constricted it is. And if it feels like too much, just stop moving for a little while. Get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, do whatever you gotta do. Like sometimes it's like, wait a minute, I wasn't ready. But if you're here, you're probably ready. Just go slow. Take things slow. Be gentle and kind with your own cells. Your body knows what you think. Your body has been there the whole time. It's not separate. It is you. There's no battle. But there is an experience. Continual biomorphic, shifting, changing experience. Is there anything to let go of here? Could be an old idea. It could be a tension pattern somewhere. Any little micro movement offering hydration to your tissues, space for your joints, nice little glidey relationships between layers in your body, hydrating tissue, releasing tension, opening up to flow, right? When there can be many flows, it could be the flow of thoughts, it could be the flow of movement, the flow of time. But more interesting flows are maybe just the flow of the breath or the air around you. What's different about the breath inside and the air on the outside? We're all breathing the same air. Point where you can say, oh, that breath is now mine. Or that breath I just released, that was mine. Or is it just moving in and out? This living process of being. Receiving yourself. So our heart is there nestled just above our diaphragm, in between our lungs. And as we breathe, the lungs are massaging the heart. And the heart, coronary artery, feeds the heart first. The heart feeds itself first before the blood goes out to the rest of the body. Right? We breathe in, the blood gets oxygenated. It moves around the heart and out to the body. And we could think of our arms or the fingertips like the capillary beds in the tips of our fingertips, the end point of our arterial flow, where it turns around and comes back through the venous flow. Almost like the breath, the inhale and then a still point, the exhale and a still point. So those capillary beds, the still moment out there before the blood comes back. Right? The blood goes out nourishing and it comes back removing waste. We want a balance of those things, right? A balance of nourishment, a balance of waste. And as we're doing that, we've got these arms. We could say they're the wings of the heart. They're also the wings of the lungs, this whole system within our thoracic cavity, within the center of our upper body, our ribs, inside of there, heart, lungs, breath, blood flow. And underneath that, our diaphragm, right, this muscle moving up and down. Living, breathing, vitality. Is there something to let go of? as we increase this flow in our body, it's easier to move in the world, right? There's more resilience in our tissues. There's more resilience, less fighting against the world. Which isn't to say we don't need to fight sometimes against the world. We can do that. That can be part of our practice, part of our fire, part of our activism. If that's what draws you in, yes, that's wonderful. I feel like a lot of the activism that I do is within my own body, with myself, being kind to myself, processing the experience of life with as much gentleness and wisdom as possible, right? Skillful embodiment. And the somatic practice gives us this chance to be with ourselves without forcing, pushing. There's no right and wrong, just in an allowing, inquiring place. What is going on? What does it feel like? How is it happening? Without needing to find a story for the answer. And one more thing I'll just pop out there, because this is something that I love, and I sort of discovered myself by thinking about it and feeling into it. And then I heard someone else say it, and I was like, yes, that is that our nervous system in our body is fully suspended, fully supported. It's not like we think of like a raw nerve or something out there on the edge, but as long as we've got skin, there's not a raw nerve in our body, right? We are supported. We are suspended. We are floating inside of our body, inside of our skin, supported in this fluid system. And even if you think about how, like if you're in the water, it's harder to feel up and down. The gravity doesn't feel the same if you're underwater, but in our body, it doesn't, it's not so different. We are suspended in there. There are pressure systems in our blood and even in our gut body. Like it's naturally responding by coming in and up. Like we are creatures that were made to walk the earth. So there's a natural pull upward in our body, which can be effortless if we think of it that way. Effortless, like plants grow towards the sun. Yeah. So I am drawn to some self-touch. You can do that too in any way. When we do hands on our own body, we have this bi-directional experience, right? I can feel my leg under my hand. I can feel my hand on my leg. So feeling this connection that is two things. But when I'm experiencing it, it's one thing. It feels like one touch. It doesn't feel like two touches, right? So that's sort of a weird non-duality of it. Which one am I feeling? I'm feeling both of them. And it could be, sometimes we really dig in and go deep into our bodies, but it can also be very soft on the surface. Soft, gentle touch. I can move my hands over my body, but I can also move my body under my hands, right? So there's multiple ways of experiencing this. And there isn't a way that I want you to do it. You don't even have to do it. You can do nothing at all. You can fall asleep. That's fine too. But it's just an exploration, something to play with, something to experience. And if you are somebody who tends to really get in there tight and hard, try really soft and light. Or if you always go really soft and light, try a little deeper. Like feel the different possibilities in touch, in movement, right? We want to expand what's possible. So when we come into this practice, we're just opening up possibilities, opening up potential, letting go of gripping or forcing, allowing ourselves, our bodies and our cells to just show up as is. And become curious about the experience. Trusting that if you find something delicious, that you can just stay there and hang out with that for as long as you want. Or if you find like a painful spot and you're like, oh, I could just really get in there, that's okay too, right? It took me a long time to not be totally waylaid by the pains in my body when I went into experiencing my body. Like, it took me a long time to not just go there and sit there. So that's fine. If it's possible to also find other places, even if you keep going back, find the delicious as well as the painful. You have the right to feel good in your body. And you belong here on the planet. You were born here. That's the proof. It is your birthright to be here. You belong here. Turn off the music. Just give us a few more minutes to process the processing in the silence of your own experience or in stillness or in movement, however you want to do it. Letting your body continue to unwind in whatever way it needs to. You can play with micro movement again, just those little micro stretches and releases. And it might be like just one little area, or maybe it's happening in a bunch of little areas, or however it's manifesting for you. People are so creative. Let it manifest for you and trust that that's it. That's the right way. That's perfect for me. And I will say that sometimes these sessions can be emotional, like if it's new and you're letting go of stuff. But for me, it's often very not connected to story. It's usually like sometimes I find myself in tears, sometimes there's grief, sometimes those things come up, but often they just move through and it's not about something. It's just, oh, my body's letting this thing happen. And I'll say also sometimes there are kriyas, there can be like nervous system releases. Just always know that you can stop that, that it's not like your body just gets to have, a huge fit. You still have control and you can skillfully decide how much movement or how little movement is going to suit you best. Because sometimes when we have clamped in our nervous system for a lifetime, which is pretty much everybody as far as I can tell, when we start to set them free, there might be little popcorn poppings around, which is okay as long as it's okay. But know that you've inhibited it for your whole life and you probably can do it some more. So if you need to slow things down, stop it, always feel free to do that. Never feel like you have to just suddenly let this open the sluice gates and let it out. It can come slowly. Bodies can handle slowness, and that's a great way to change. And there's one more thing I'll say about this. Like we might do a practice and feel like, well, I didn't really feel anything. And that's because we've become really good at not feeling anything, right? We've managed to armor ourselves up to not feel. So we want to take time to slow down, let ourselves come to a place where maybe we can feel some things or like sense things. But it's not just like a practice of one day I know what happens. It's like, well, how was it a few days later? Or if I continue with the practice, how was it a week later? How was it a month later? How was it a year later? Like, and just checking in. Also thinking like if you came back to this practice every day or once a week, this specific practice, it would probably land very differently each day in your body. You would take in different information every time. So it will be posted on the Olympic. It's on their YouTube channel. It will be, and it's also on mine. But come back to things sometimes. Like live in such a fast world of distraction, distraction, distraction. There is a lot to be gained for coming back and repeating things, especially when we're slowing down our nervous system, when we're coming into this more down-regulated state where our body does have the chance to process and heal and rest. So that's the sell for the doing it more than once. But it might not be this, it might be something else. Even just going out, being in nature and seeing what's different from day to day is a great practice of coming in to your own body.